So I'm really excited for today, and I'm really hoping that this goes well. Hope you guys enjoy it. And if it does, we'll continue into the future. And yeah, if you're going to be competing yourselves, if you're going to try to compete with the numbers shown here, see if you can get close or in and around that number, cool. If you can beat them, great. That's awesome. As long as you're having some fun, I hope there's some competitors out there. And yeah, just let me know in the chat. Let's see, we got Gog versus Jay battle. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a battle. I mean, Jay was just faffing around with some hardware, obviously. He didn't tune anything. He didn't do his crazy water cooling on it or anything. But what really kind of stuck out was he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to use like this cheapo RAM that I got off of Amazon and this and that. And when you're taking a look at an older platform, not setting it up properly, it's a little disingenuous was kind of where I was at. Now, granted, most normies would probably set their systems up the same way that Jay did. In fact, we're just going to look at Jay's numbers as stock. Even though he used the OC Genie to overclock the CPU a little bit, we're going to just consider those stock numbers because that's how most people run their systems. And this is how the mainstream guys portray these systems. I'm going to show you what the system can actually do when you give it a little bit of TLC and you buy the proper parts for it. So it's not, obviously, I'm not recommending everybody go out and buy a 4770K unless you just want to play and have fun. But if you happen to have one of those or like a 6700K or just anything that's a little bit older and the performance just isn't quite where you want it to be, instead of buying a whole new platform, which can get quite expensive, maybe just pick up some better RAM or spend a little time in the BIOS. And you might get to the performance level that'll get you another year or two out of your hardware, and that can save you money. So that's basically the point of this video. Anyways, let's get on in here and show everything off so you guys can see what we're doing. Okay, so obviously this isn't Core i7 4770K. Not trying to hide anything. Core voltage 1.28. So this is very reasonable. I could get this up to 4.6 gigahertz, but then this has to go over, was it 1.32? Basically, it's diminishing returns. So I didn't even push it that hard. Kept it very reasonable. Thing stays very, very cool. The memory, as I mentioned before, we have 2800. It's DDR, so times 2. We have our ring clock at 4.2 gigahertz. By the way, all of this is in the video description if you want to just reference that. And then we're running 12, 14, 14, 34, 2T command, 240 clocks. And then for tuning, DDR3 is basically the same as DDR4, as far as I could tell. You just lower your TRFC. TREFI is a little bit lower than I can get on BDI. It's 25,000, whereas BDI, you can get around 60,000 pretty easy. But yeah, you just kind of go up in little increments, and it still does the same. Okay, so there's that, and then let's blow up our afterburner. So we're using the 2080 Ti, obviously. We're pushing the power limit. Okay, so it's plus 30 watts on the EVGA, or 30%. And then we have plus 140 on the core. You can do 143, which kicks it up like to the next tier. It's a little less stable, so I went with more stable at 140. And then I can kick this up to a full 1000, which is 2 gigahertz higher. This gets us up to 16 gigabit per second. RAM, I just lowered it the extra 25, same reason, for stability purposes. So yeah, this is a good one. If you have the Samsung RAM, apparently they all get pretty high like that. So let me show you that one. Let's go under GPU-Z. So if you don't know how to check your GPU memory, all right, just use GPU-Z. See, it says GDDR6. The Samsung ones, these go the fastest. So if you do pick up a 2080 Ti, ask the person to send you a screenshot of CPU-Z, and then you can tell before you buy it. So that's just a little pro tip. Okay, so Jay's numbers. All right, so here we go. These are the numbers that we wrote down last time. And I left a couple numbers in off of a first run. So it kind of gives you an idea. So, boop, we're going to get rid of that because we're going to run them all fresh. But we have Jay's 4770K. He only did Cinebench multi-thread. He came out at 4800. And then his Time Spy Extreme. This is the numbers that he got for CPU, GPU, and then the overall. He didn't run regular Time Spy. I figured we could just run it if we want to. His Cyberpunk numbers. he had 29 on his minimum FPS, and then he had 82 as his average. You can see how this compares to a 12100, and it's actually pretty funny. But remember, this is the worst case scenario for 4770K. And then Shadow of the Tomb Raider, he had 64 as his minimum and 97 on the high. So we'll go ahead and do our tests. I'll jot down some numbers, and then we will compare. All right. What's kind of funny is if you're used to, running Cinebench on more modern systems, this is this is pretty darn slow. 4-core 8-thread Cinebench feels old. Yeah, it does, right? Like, you run it on like the 13700K, which has 16 cores, 24 threads. It's just, instantaneously done. And then you're like, oh wait, this did used to take time to render. Damn, I'm spoiled. It's like paint drying. Yeah. Well, even Jay didn't wait the whole 10 minutes. We're not going to wait the whole 10 minutes either. He just kind of came over here because this is about where it's going to be. So we're just going to run with that. So that's 5464. So let's go ahead and stop Cinebench because we don't need you. 5464. I like it because that's pretty easy to remember. And then that was multi-thread 5464. Correct me if I was wrong. Sorry, I got distracted by fixing other things. But if I remember correctly, that is where we were at. So what is that? Just doing simple math. J, our CPU is 5464 by 4813. All right, so that's in Cinebench and multi-thread. We're coming up at 13.5% faster. So that's a pretty good bump considering our clock speed's only, 12.5% faster? So, and we know Cinebench doesn't really scale with RAM. So somehow I got, with 12.5% clock speed increase, I got 13.5% higher Cinebench score. Probably the ring clock is probably where the rest of it came in. So, alrighty, let's jump on back. Awesome to see the stream. Love old school gear. Can't bring myself to buy the latest. Well, you don't have to. That's kind of the whole point. Now, granted, I wouldn't recommend a 4-core, 8-thread, 10-year-old CPU. However, you can get an 8-core, 16-thread, 9-year-old CPU, and that thing's still doing just fine. There's a lot of really old parts that'll still, for gaming, are just more than enough. All right, so I have not run the Time Spy Extreme, which is what Jay had. But this particular system did take the standard Time Spy world record. So I also was pushing it a little harder than we are here. So I'm interested to see how far off we are. And if we want to, at the end of this stream, maybe we'll try to push for the Time Spy Extreme world record with this. Yeah. Most stuff runs fine on old hardware. Yeah, 100%. You have to remember, games take, about 5 years development time's kind of normal now. And it's not like they can really build... When you start building a game, it's got to be for hardware that actually exists when you start building it. So, yeah, that's why this whole push towards, I need more, I need faster. It's like, yeah, it's nice to have if financially it made sense or, the market was competitive enough. CPU side, the market's reasonably competitive. But, like on the GPU side, no, not so much. 1.5 volts and 5 gigahertz for the record. I'd have to delid this. See, that's the other thing. This is not delidded. I was trying to keep this as apples to apples with Jay as I possibly could. Basically, I just got better RAM than he did. And that's about it. That's really the only difference. I have a slightly different graphics card version than he did. But it's the same graphics card. So, but yeah, if I delidded this and... just doing that'll get you about 200 megahertz, so that'll get us to 4.7. I still don't think even with 1.5 volts, 5 gigahertz that's Silicon Lottery territory, I think. Wait, those things take 1.5 volts? You can push 1.5 volts into anything as long as you can keep it cool. It's not recommended, it'll kill the chip, but if you're shooting for world records, most of those guys don't care if the chip survives. The goal is the record. My goal is just to have fun with it. I just happened to be, when I did the regular Time Spy, I was off by about 50 points. So I was like, the hell with it. I can get another 50 points. It's in 3D Mark, just so I could, get it there. And then I was like, this makes for good advertising for the stream here. So now, granted, there was no LN2 entries or any of that stuff. Obviously, nobody delitted. Most of them were 4.6 or 4.5 gigahertz on the CPU. So, you know, this combination isn't totally overtaken by the crazies out there, which is pretty fun. Like, if you guys want to try to compete, it's more fun competing against normal people than, you know, the LN2 guys out there, because you can't touch those. You know, they'll run the CPU at like 6 gigahertz or something. Once again, they don't care if it survives. Well, I can get to 4.6 just fine on this one. It's just, you're going to start hitting thermal limits if you start pushing too much higher than that. Like I said, if I delit, I guarantee you 4.7, no problem. And if I really wanted to push it, I could probably get it to 4.8. So if I was like, yes, I must win the time spies, and I just said the hell with it and was really gunning for it, yeah, we can do some pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, no, this isn't the fastest this system can go at. This is the fastest 24/7 we could do. World record missed by, no, I got it. My score, 55.94, 55.64. All right, so we beat them. I don't even have to tune it in. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, people with, you know, this combination of hardware, they're normal people. They're not doing any of the crazy stuff. So you can have fun competing against normal people. But there you go, guys. World record. There we are. Okay. So times by extreme. We got 55.94. It's actually not too far away from the i3. That's pretty easy math. That's like, what, 12%? I guess we could be more scientific about it, but just eyeballing it. 2171, and then we had what was it, 7751. So somehow the graphics score on this wins. That is very strange to me. That's probably a margin of error type of thing, but interesting, very interesting. So let's calculate this. So overall, 55.94 plus, or divided by 49.32, so 13. That's a pretty reoccurring number there. So overall, we're 13.5 again. The CPU, 2171 divided by 1894, 14.5. And then 7751, 881. And 12.5. So it's the GPU score that's helping Jay out there. But the CPU on this one's 14.5% faster. So a little bit higher than the Cinebench one. All right, so Shadow the Tomb Raider. He ran everything with ultra or max settings, the highest preset. At 1080p, just no ray tracing. I'm guessing he probably I turned that stuff off personally. I'm guessing he probably left it on, so we'll leave it on. I double checked. This is the same preset that he had. As you can see, obviously we're not fully utilizing the graphics card at this point in time. 81, 84%. Simply put, we just need to raise the resolution a bit with a 2080 Ti, and then we're way more balanced. Okay, so for Tomb Raider, we have 130. Oh, there's a pen just decided to break on me. 138. That's a dead pen. Look at this. Pony, you show up and everything starts falling apart, man. 138. And then on our minimums, 99. Okay, so what did we get? We had 138. Oh, this is minimum. It's like, how am I beating the 12100? No, we did not beat the 12100. And then 138. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's take a look here. So we had 99 on our minimum, or 1%, whatever. It's the lowest number that they say that you got versus 64. There we go. In gaming, now we're 54.6. We're gonna write that down here. 54.6 higher percent. Boom. That's a big one. These settings. Looks like it's low res too, but it could just be 1080. All right, 1080p. He used ultra without ray tracing. Ultra, and then we got to turn off fidelity, FX, and all of that. And we'll leave the rest on. All right. Apply. Is it good to disable the meltdown patches on CPUs? I didn't on this one. I figured if we needed to push any harder, I would do it. If you need more performance, it can help out a little bit. But if you need like a lot more performance, it's not going to cut it. So it's one of those, like, if you're like, yeah, a little bit extra would be nice. Like if you're already hitting your goal, but you're like a little extra headroom, then I would do it. But if you're like, yeah, I need 15, 20% faster, you're not going to get that. You'll get maybe 5%. So, I mean, 5% is 5%, but all right, there we go. Not VSync numbers. So what do we got? 105, round up to 106. And then minimum is 51. Okie dokie. Let's see what Captain McJ had. Wrong thing again. All right, so let's get on in here. We had 51. I think we're going to have a repeat. And then 106. Okay. So, obviously, these don't matter. This is why averages don't matter, because this is unplayable. Imagine bouncing in between here as your frame rate. It's terrible. Also, this is why you cap your frame rate. Like, even that's not good. You're better off capping it like 75, 80. But anyways, see where we're at. So, 51 and 29. 75.8%. That's pretty ridiculous, boys. I suppose we could just round this up to 76%. So yeah, I think we won there, but this pretty much kind of shows. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any more like actual game numbers. Synthetic benchmarks mean literally nothing. Actual game benchmarks do a thing, and you can get anywhere from 50 to 75% in our limited things. Now, granted, Jay was running, I would say, probably slightly worse than stock, but it was pretty close to what we would consider to be a stock system. But that's the difference between having a optimized, fully optimized system. That means you buy the right parts. This includes motherboard. Motherboard's very important. RAM is very, very, very important. CPU, believe it or not, is less important than those two to a certain degree, as long as you have enough cores and it's new enough. And then, believe it or not, GPU is even less important. In my opinion, CPU, memory and motherboard are the most important thing to unlocking the max potential out of your system. Buying graphics cards that have the higher power limit right out of the box, that's also very useful information as well, so you can get more performance out of that. And when you can get 50 to 75% faster out of your system, that means it's just going to last you much, much longer. Do you know how long it takes for 50%? Let's just use 50. We'll lowball it. For like new CPUs and GPUs and whatnot to usually get you 50%. It's usually 2 generations on graphics cards. And CPUs, 50% is 3. So you're looking at this extending the life of your system by at least 3 to 5 years, longer than it would originally. So if the system was going to be good for 3 to 5 years anyway, this is why systems can last nearly 10 years. So we'll go ahead here in a little bit. I'm going to take a little break from jumping back and forth. I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit about all of this, but then we'll take a look at more modern games and see how those do. And so we'll check out Hogwarts, Resident Evil 4, and The Last of Us. I've already spoiled it. The Last of Us just does not cut it. But the other two do work. And if you bought one of these in 2013, you're probably like, ha ha ha, it's still kicking. And I can play most games, most modern AAA games. You can play all of the indie stuff. All of the pixel art type of games, which a lot of people seem to be liking more than AAA anyway nowadays. Is Jay going to tune his? I don't know. Like I said, I sent him an email. He's more than welcome to do so. Obviously, we will put out a regular video on this one as well. And I really hope he does, because it'd be really nice. I know that he knows how to do better than he did in that video. A lot of you guys took umbrage with that video because he was showing literally worst case scenario for this setup. Now I'm showing you the absolute best case scenario as I smack it. As I pull a Linus and rip the tubes right out of it, I'm showing you the best case scenario for a 24/7 normal person build. Any one of you guys can do this. It is not that difficult. If you know how to tune RAM and you have a couple of hours, one evening, you can get it tuned in. The GPU, that's a little bit of a luck of the draw. This one's actually really, 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 really good. I showed you guys before, if you get the Samsung GDDR6, you're going to get the really high overclock on the VRAM frequency. So if you're looking to buy something like that, you do that as well. The CPU is pretty normal. Every one of these that I've had will do 4.4, 4.6 gigahertz. This is running at 4.5. I kept the voltage low, 1.28. It's very good for a 24/7 run. So yeah, this is very achievable by most people. And even if your bin's a little bit worse, maybe your clocks are slightly lower on your GPU, it's only going to be a couple of frames different, right? So, Jay's have to buy you a beer now. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Maybe that's, if the tech tube community wants to have some fun instead of just complaining about stupid things all the time that they have no control over. It'd be really nice if more people would do this. That's why I'm kind of opening it up to everybody, even you guys. That's why I'm not going to use very expensive parts. You need a halfway decent GPU, but this is a really good deal. So I'd recommend for just about anybody to pick one of these up. Plus, if you want to just resell it when you're done messing with it, you're going to get most of your money back. So like a year from now, the 2080 Ti's, if you get them for $350 now, worst case, they're still going to be $250. So you're not going to lose a whole lot of money there. And you get a year's worth of faffing around for fun. I'm only going to do sub $100 CPUs, and we're only going to be doing motherboards that are available also under $100. And I'm assuming everybody has some DDR4 laying around, and I just showed you the DDR3 you can get for like 30, 40 bucks. So for less than a couple of $100, except for the graphics card, you too can join in. So I really hope other YouTubers do it. It's not that expensive. It's a small investment. It's kind of fun. But it would be really cool if, you kind of go at each other, and then whoever wins, the other guys have to buy like a beer or jump on the stream and like do a $5 or something. I'd be cool with that. It could be like this thing that we all do, and people stop worrying about, is the 7800X3D 5% faster than the 13900K in this one game? That's who cares territory. Can you still play modern games on a 4770K? That's a real question, because a lot of people have 4770Ks. And, they might be like, I'd rather not buy something if I don't have to. Well, there you go. You can go ahead and go that route. Tune it up. There's a lot of performance there. Repurposing old hardware should gain more popularity. It might. Like I said, I'm trying to... Jay did his video, and I really liked it, and that's why I emailed him, and I'm like, I'm gonna do a thing with this and take it to the next level, and that's what we're doing now. And I'm kind of hoping that it would spark something out there. But at the end of the day, for a lot of these guys, it's a business. It's what's going to get the most clicks, what's going to get the most views. And starting a new trend is very, very difficult. It's actually up to you guys. It's not really even up to me. I'll make the content, but it's up to you guys to share and show it around and be like, hey, this dude's having a lot of fun. Look what this thing can do, and so on and so forth. And you got to be like, just happy about it. Because if you're like, oh, I'm so mad at the 4060 and this and that, nobody wants to listen to those people. That's what everybody else is saying. But if you're like, yeah, but hey, look, you can use old hardware and it's just fine. You don't have to buy a 4060. Then we can start changing the narrative. People can start having fun. NVIDIA can charge whatever they want. If it's dumb, nobody buys it, because everybody's going to be pretty much happy with what they have. The market as a whole, that's not ideal for them, because then people aren't spending money, and they don't like that. But as content creators, it's very hard to move the market to a more positive direction. It's so much easier to go negative. Oh, by the way, the shader caching on this game with the 4770K took like an hour and a half. Just warning you. Unlike other games that only do the pre-caching for like key shaders, this one, I guess it does all of them. All right, so let's go under the graphics. So what am I doing? Custom preset. Okay. Yeah, so this is what I did. I left the textures on high, And to try to get this to work, I just put everything else on low because we got plenty of VRAM and this is a more powerful graphics card. But basically anything that affected the CPU, I turned off. Selection quality, half resolution. Once again, like I said, we already know that this one doesn't work. I've already let that cat out of the bag, but I'll show you guys. Yeah, this is pretty good. I'm really curious. Like I said, once we get into the car crash, like I said, it really fell apart, but if all that was on the fly shader caching, then it really makes you wonder what the heck is it doing for an hour and a half when it says it's compiling shaders, right? So then you could say this is like playing it on RPCS 3 because it has to compile the shaders. Then it plays fine. Just replay the area. Load up your checkpoint. Because, yeah, we're actually doing pretty good here. All right, so this is pretty much the area that I wanted to see because this was running like in the high 30s. It was dipping down to like 38, 39. I'm like, no, that's not good enough. But if we can stay, I'd say above 45, then I retract my previous statement and I'd say, yes, this is playable. If you have a 10-year-old i7 4770K, and you can play this game at 45 FPS to 60 with an average of 60, I would consider that perfectly fine. Riva Tuner 80s. There we go. Okay. Here we go. This... It's not as bad as it was. It is running better. Like I said, it was down 39. Maybe it's the next spot. There's like fire and all sorts of other stuff. It gets down there pretty good. Now, granted, this is probably one of the busiest sequences of the game because I played the game and you're basically just walking around buildings trying not to bother stuff. And it'll obviously do fine there, but... there you go. There's your 39, your 38, but that was... we're still there. Let's see. Something about that wall. The game don't like that, or the computer doesn't like that one wall. 36. Yeah, see, so this is what I saw, and I was like, no, no. Now, once again, if you're like, I just want to play the game, you could lock it to 30, and then that would be fine. But yeah, there's just not quite enough there, guys. So, all right, I'm going to leave it there. So that's the reason why I was saying no on this one. Anyways, on this one, I bumped it up to 1440p because it's a 2080 Ti, and it's a 2080 Ti. Let's see. VSync is on, which we'll do on versus off, and I'll show you why. Just on is just... you need it. You need it. If you're having trouble holding frame times, cap your frames at a reasonable level, and it just makes things so much better. Graphics preset, we did have to turn off some of the more CPU stuff. We do have ultra on textures, shadows at medium, post-processing at medium. I could probably bump these up to high, but to make sure that I could get to a locked 60, I just kind of did the blanket stuff. But to keep visuals looking nice, view distance quality, this one, unfortunately, you do have to go to low. That is on your CPU. Population's also kind of the same thing. Foliage, I mean, we could probably bump some of that up, but I'm not even going to mess with it. The goal is, can this old CPU run this game at 60 FPS? That was the goal. All right, so as we know, Hogsmeade on the frame time graph is always going to be bouncing around because it doesn't matter what hardware you have, it's just the way the game runs it. But for the most part, we can hold 60 FPS. Outside of it jumping up to 62 for some reason for the most part. Little shader cache here and there. But yeah, this is very, 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 very much playable. And here, let's here, we'll go into this candy shop, please. Go to the candy shop. Because most of the game isn't running around this one village, which tanks performance. So this is literally like worst case scenario. This is extremely playable. Let's go into Honeydukes. And then you can see that CPU utilization drop off the map. So, like, most of the gameplay, or a lot of it's going to be in, you know, enclosed areas of some sort. And it's going to run just fine. So, yes, the 4770K, when properly set up, with your plus 55 to 75% over J, you can play modern games. As long as you're cool with 60 FPS, which, once again, if you're using a 10-year-old CPU, the assumption is you're cool with 60 FPS. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Was this fun? Did you learn a thing? Like, was it interesting to see this type of setup? Should we do more? Like I said, I was planning on doing next month, but there's no, it's not set in stone. I haven't bought anything, but I have a B550 board that'll take Zen 1, so I'm assuming Zen Plus will work. So all I really need is just the $45 CPU. So I don't see any reason why I wouldn't do it. 3770 would be cool. Nice to see those potatoes kill pixels. Well, my brother's got my 2600K. I can always get that from him. But we tested that last year. I did a video on it. After we're done here, because we'll be wrapping up here in a minute, you can go ahead and search that out. I did Spider-Man in that one, I think. So it's not the most recent games, but it's pretty recent. Now, granted, I didn't have this RAM, or the RAM that Pony's going to be sending me, so that might make things significantly better. I would imagine so, because I was using 2133C9, and it just wouldn't go any higher. It just hit the wall. With these hitting 2800, especially for something like Spider-Man, that would help. So, yeah, who knows? Sandy Bridge, the OG. You guys just love the Sandy. I love Sandy Bridge, too. So I gave it to my brother instead of selling it. I'm like, if I ever need it back, I just need to get you another motherboard and CPU that's as fast, or if not faster. And he wouldn't care. It's like, my wife using the 6700K. It's like, I'm not going to need this very often. But if I do, I can pull that out and test it. But yeah, if you want to see more, make sure you subscribe. Hit that little notification bell next to that. If you want to become a member, throughout the whole week, I'm checking my Discord all the time, chatting with the boys, talking about stuff, running ideas. I sent the thumbnail over early yesterday evening, so those guys knew what the thumbnail was going to be a little bit early. So all sorts of cool stuff over there, and it does help support the channel by clicking the join button down below or becoming a Patreon member. Links are in the video description. And of course, join over on Techonomics Podcast. The links for that are in the video description. I also go live once a week with Paul from Not an Apple Fan on Mondays, and same time that we normally do these streams. And so you get to see me live twice a week. And I'm thinking, I don't know, I got a few things that I want to do, so I'll probably come out with just some regular videos without the streams, just because not all content lends itself to this. Testing things I actually like doing with you guys. So this way, not only do you see me doing it, you're right there. Everything's happening. But there's some things that just don't lend to that. So I think I'll be coming up with a couple extra videos here in the not too distant future. But anyways, guys, hope you have a great Friday. Glad you made it to the end. Thank you so much for all of your support. You guys are amazing, and hope you have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys on Monday on Techonomics. Take care, guys.